Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 42 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, August 21st, and it is less than a week away from the opening of another Effingham High School football season. So with that in mind, we have got I don't know, is it okay for me to say the longtime head coach of Effingham High School yet? The seventh year head coach of the Effingham High School football team.
There's times that it feels long, but not as long as the couple guys before me, but we're getting there.
Brett Hefner is our guest on the show today. Brett, thank you so much for joining us. And you're right. Effingham has had some coaches that have stuck around for a really long time, but you again, seventh year in the program. You're a pretty familiar face there on the sideline, and there's been some pretty good years so far, and we're really looking forward to another season with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be on. Happy to get to visit with you guys, and yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's we had that the hiccup in there, that magic word that, like somebody said the other night, you don't want to say the whole COVID word, but it's starting to have this one has a little bit more normal feel to it, a normal off season, a normal routine, those sort of things. So yeah, we're anxious to get started. We've been going at it pretty good for 2 weeks, beat up a little bit toward the end of the week. So lightened things up on Friday and had the nice dedication ceremony, and then had pictures yesterday, light on them. They get a day off today, and then we'll be back in tomorrow to start game week. So certainly looking forward to that.
Yep. Decatur St. Teresa on the schedule, Friday night coming up. They're coming to Effingham. A lot of exciting things around the program I want to touch on. You mentioned the dedication ceremony, and we'll get to the new field, but you're coming off of a 4-5 season. That was the first sub 500 season in a while. Had some really good years there, including undefeated in the COVID year that you talked about. But last year, it was some heavy hitters on that schedule, and yet you really had a team that was a couple of breaks and a couple of games away from getting to that 5-win threshold, and it wasn't quite there. But I don't think you wouldn't call last year a bad year by the same token either. I mean, just a really challenging year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The tough part about it was, and I felt bad for those kids, was the COVID situation threw a pretty good kink into them. I mean, they lost about a year and a half in there of development of normalcy. And then when we finally got the green light to play in the spring, it was super rushed. You only had 5 games. We only ended up playing 5 games. We had a large senior class anyway in that group. And at that point, a lot of things kind of became about those kids because it was going to be their last experience with sports. And they had so much taken away from them. So we lost some development there, and then a quick turnaround and not much prep time to get ready for the fall. And we were so inexperienced last year. We talked about and it was a small senior class, but they didn't have any varsity experience. And it's a big difference in playing on Friday night versus playing on Monday nights. And so I think a lot of those things that we've been very fortunate here, in that we really haven't changed systems at all from the time that I came in. Yeah. And so those kids come in as freshmen, and by the time that they're seniors, they know every nuance within the scheme and within the system. And that last year, I just think we spent so much time on just the big things, how to get lined up, like where are my eyes, as opposed to being able to be detail oriented, like, okay, what's the receiver split? What's the back's depth? All those little tips that give it away. Yeah. But I was really proud of them because, as you said, as the year went on, they improved greatly. They gave themselves a shot. I mean, we had a shot to get 5 wins. It was going to be against, some tough people, but we gave ourselves a shot to get those 5 wins. And, hopefully getting back into the playoffs this year is obviously one of our top goals.
And, talking about this year, you and I, before we started recording, we talked about how, again, you got a pretty good schedule this year, some challenging opponents. And I don't know, I didn't do a lot of thinking about how I wanted to attack this conversation, but we'll touch on the schedule in a second. But I want to talk about your team, because that's really what we're here to hear you
Yeah.
talk about your guys. You know, the schedule is what it is, and you'll play those games, and Mike and I will talk about it every week. But you know, you mentioned the small senior class last year, and that would indicate then that you should have a nice experienced group this year, and maybe some of that detail oriented stuff that you were just talking about can be focused on, and you can really, you know, really sharpen up around the edges.
Yeah, and you're correct. We've got a senior class of 23, which is a great number for us. And anytime that we've the 1 year that we didn't have a big senior class and we're still pretty successful was the 18 season with Landon Wolf and those guys. They only had 12. But the group behind them had 24, and the group behind them had 24. So you get back-to-back big classes. But this group of seniors has a number of kids that played a lot last year,
yeah.
And they picked up 2 pretty good athletes. Garrett Wolf was able to join us again. He was injured, wasn't able to play. And then we have a move-in young man by the name of Jack Harper. That's about 6'2", 280 pounds. It's an outstanding athlete, heck of a baseball player.
Yes.
So that class has a number of guys back. So offensively, Tanner's back at quarterback, Evans back at fullback, John's back at tailback. We returned 3, Connor Thompson at tight end, Riley Crane at offensive line, Foster in the offensive line, Coburn in the offensive line. A couple of our receivers, Armando, we're flipping over to defense. So we've got a number of guys back offensively. Defensively, 3 by the end of the year, all 4 we're starting defensive linemen. They're back. Connor Simmons back in the secondary, flipping Armando over defensively, even though it's a different side of the ball. He played 9 varsity games. So we've got a lot of experience back, and so I hopefully that will be very beneficial to us.
You mentioned those guys on the line, and Mike, I know that you're going to appreciate me starting here because
this was my son's bread and butter. Why do you don't mind? It was my son's bread.
People ask me every year, before the season starts, they say how the Heart's going to be. And I always say, I need to see a game. I need to see how the lines play. I need to see how much time the offensive line is giving, backs to make their moves and how much space they're creating. And I need to see, what kind of pressure the defensive line is able to put. And you really just don't know until the team's on the field, because kids can change so much physically from year to year. Isn't that right? I mean, it's just.
Oh, they do. Yeah, they do. And that year makes a big difference. Like I still go all the way back to 2016 when Terrence Hill and that group and we were big up front. And when they were juniors, we just kind of thought, well, hey, we're going to win because they all played as sophomores.
Mm-hmm.
And they went 3-6. And then before having a great senior year, but you forget that 1 year when you're playing with seniors, that 1 year makes a big difference. And like you said, not only in their physical development, but their mental development, and just to continue to understand the schemes and all that. So I would agree. That's why I feel lucky that we have the amount of returning guys that we have on the offensive and defensive line. The other thing is, that we've always done since I've been here, is we start 11 different offensively and 11 different defensively. And so the nice thing about that is during practice, we do a lot of ones versus ones.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the same thing when you ask, or, hey, how you going to be? Well, I don't know, because we all walk out of practice at that last segment going ones versus ones. The defensive guy's not happy. The offensive guys aren't happy because you can't get a feel. But if one side was always winning, we'd really be in trouble. So if it's our starting offense against our starting defense, it should be pretty even, and nobody should feel like they've won.
Coach, that's one of the things I've noticed since you guys have kind of been able to have the personnel to be able to do that, keep kids on one side of the ball. You have that drive usually about middle of third quarter where you just kind of impose your will on people, it seems like. And it's that, you can tell, well, the other kids got 3 of those D linemen are both are O linemen, and they've been banging on your kids all night. They are a little tired.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously been huge for you guys to be able to do that. And you've had a lot of games where in the second half, you appear to be a different team on the field, but it's primarily the fact you've worn your opponents down.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That was a big thing, and a big part of that was my time up in the suburbs where our rosters were big enough that you did that. But and I was fortunate in my time when I first came here, we had a couple large classes in young kids, and so we just made the decision at that time, and exactly what you said. It just, you can't convince me that a kid going one way in that third and fourth quarter, even though he might not be as talented as the other kid that's going both ways, he's going to be a more effective player at the end of the game because of that. And then the other thing is, it allows us to, with our lower levels, play more kids. I mean, football is a numbers game and trying to keep kids out. And it's so hard nowadays to keep kids out in any sport,
Right.
but football especially, because unlike the other sports, to make yourself better in football, you don't play it. You're lifting, you're running, you're doing those things. To get better in baseball, you play it. To get better in basketball, you play it. To get better. And so when you already have to spend a lot of your time not playing the game, that kid says, well, I'm not getting to play. I'm not, and they move on to something else where we can start different kids and start 22 different kids with our lower level, and you keep more kids engaged. And then if you do get somebody hurt, if he's a two-way guy, well, you really lose two starters.
Right.
And if you can play those guys one way, and now somebody goes down, it's just one person. It's not two positions that you're having to fill.
Right. And if you have let's say you got a group of freshmen of 40 kids and you've got 15 really, really good athletes, and you're like, okay, some of these kids are going both ways. So we're really only playing about 17 kids. You got 20 kids that get really bored and they're saying, okay, I put in a lot of work. This isn't worth it. Yeah. But you're right. By getting those kids involved early and having those numbers to do that, you get kids to hang around. Then they get in the weight room and they develop physically over time. And now you're like, man, we've got a good kid here at guard who was a freshman. Yeah, we weren't sure he was going to be able to stick around. Yeah, no, you're right. And you guys hit on earlier, they changed so much. We don't know what they're going to look like. That's why, like, lower level wise, it's going to sound bad. We don't put an emphasis on winning. With our lower levels, it's we want to develop and play as many kids as we can. If we have the chance, you want to compete, win, but we're not just going to take 13 kids and say, hey, you guys are going to go win it. Go win it for us. I mean, we're gonna play as many as we can and try and develop as many as we can, because at the end of the day, we talk about laugh about it, but I say, hey, who won the fresh soft state championship this year? And everybody just kind of looks at me. I said, well, nobody, because they don't have one. Quit worrying about it and understand what we're trying to accomplish.
And that's a luxury.
That's a great point there. You're exactly right. And that's one of the things I love. That's how you build a program.
Yeah, and Effingham has, and this is a credit to you and a credit to your predecessors too. Effingham has always had really good numbers up and down the program, where you see it dwindling, and I hear more about canceled, freshman games, or not even having freshman teams anymore, and having to combine freshmen and JV just to get that one game in the week. That's so far hasn't been as much of an issue in Effingham, it doesn't seem like.
Well, and the other reason I'm fortunate, the other area I'm fortunate in is this. In my first couple of years, we did this, and I'm glad they changed the rules you have to follow now in terms of contact and number of games and stuff like that. For us to play 3 levels of football, so we only play one lower level of football. So we play fresh soft. We don't play freshman and then play JV. And so here's the decision that we made. When we were trying to play 3 levels, we had to take a handful of freshmen and pull them up to our JV. Okay. Well, if you do that, the chances of them being successful playing against some juniors in our sport isn't real good. Mm-hmm. And in basketball and baseball, they're not going to get physically hurt. In our sport, they can get physically hurt. And then, like you said, now that's a bad experience. So you pull those handful of kids up. Well, it weakens your freshman team, number one. So the chance of them having much success isn't real good. And then on top of that, the kids that don't get pulled up, nowadays, they pay attention to that. And it's, well, I didn't get pulled up. Well, how come I didn't get pulled up? So we made the decision, well, hey, we're going to play fresh soft. That's what we're going to play. We're not going to play JV. And we'll find spots on our special teams and stuff like that to get our juniors in the best that we can. But to me, it was more important to keep those freshmen and sophomores engaged and make sure they come back to us as juniors, as opposed to trying to stretch everything too thin. And I've seen people, and there's people on our schedule that they'll stretch kids to play all 3 games. There's kids playing 2 games a week. And yes, legally you can, but you can't convince me that physically it's in that kid's best interest to play 17 football games. Yeah. Just like in travel baseballs, you can't convince me it's in anybody's best interest to play 35 high school games and then turn around and go play 60 in the summer. That kid's played 95 games in 3 months. So we made the decision to do that. I was fortunate enough, our administration didn't fight me. I said, okay, and if this is what you think is best for your program, and I think that's how you have to look at it, what's best for us? Maybe it isn't best for somebody else, but I don't care about somebody else. I care about our program. And so they made the decision. We made the decision to go that route. And I think that's been the best thing for us, was making that decision.
All right. So getting back to this year's team a little bit, you mentioned Tanner Pontius, and it's always a luxury. I understand that you have to have 11 guys in concert doing a thing correctly in order for a play to work, and that quarterbacks get a lot of the glory, even though there's other guys working out there. But the fact of the matter is, center of the action, very important position, and you've got a starter coming back, and that's always a good place for an offense to start. There's just no doubt.
It is. Yeah, it is. And he's had a really good fall, camp. He's been outstanding all off season, but toward the end of May, he went to a camp. The Leonards put on a camp over at Sacred Heart Griffin. He went over there in the month of May and got some work in, and he's throwing the ball really well. The biggest thing, like you said, is, and I get that question. Well, hey, the biggest thing is the number of reps. He's gotten a ton of reps. You look at his improvement from week 1 last year to week 9, drastic improvement. But even this fall, just his handling of the offense, he knows the answers. He says the right things. He does the right things. If he makes a mistake, he knows the mistake he made and why he made it. And whereas a year ago, I think he was just worried about trying to call the play, let alone trying to execute it.
Yeah.
And Brett, he got dinged up a little bit his first 2 years, didn't he? And missed some time.
He did. And like you said, you talk about the COVID year. We were planning on playing him some that spring because we knew he was going to have to play in the fall. And so we knew his ability to run the ball. He's a lot different runner than we've had. He's more of a bigger kid. Shaq could take off and was quick and he could be gone. And Tanner's more just, he's not fun to tackle. He's 6'3", 195, 200 pounds. And but yeah, he was banged up, broke a bone in his foot and broke it multiple times, and had to have surgery on it. And luckily, knock on wood, he's stayed healthy. And but yeah, he was dinged up, but he stayed healthy last year. And man, you talk about that extra year in the weight room. He's pretty big.
It's interesting to me, though, switching from quarterback to, you talk about Armando Estrada going strictly defense. He was your leading receiver last year.
Yeah.
So who's picking up the slack then? Tell me about that.
Well, at receiver, Caden Walls is back. So he played receiver. Andrew Lotz is a junior. Andrew's about 6'3", and so he's got a nice big catch radius. We picked Garrett Wolf back up. So those three, Jacob Weaver's rotating in there some, Carter Bushu's rotating in there some, the Harper kids rotating in there some. And we can take Armando, similar like to how we did with Parker, and where you have specific stuff that he can do. And so if we need to, we can. But I still think this each group is different, and so I knew we had to be able to play defense, and we didn't play defense very well at times last year. We didn't tackle very well at times, and we didn't cover very well at times. And so his soccer background and his basketball background make him a pretty natural playing defensive back. He just does a lot of things. He does a lot of things naturally just in terms of relationship and covering people, and then his ball skills and understanding things. And to tell you what a great kid he is, and you touched on, he was an all-conference wide receiver, and it could have been a conversation that did not go very well at all. For him it could have been really like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm an all-conference wide receiver. Like, why would I go? Why am I going over there? And it tells you what a great kid he is. He looked right at me and goes, Coach, I'm good with whatever you want to do. I just want to win. That's all I'm cared about. All I worry about is winning. If that's what you think, that's what we'll do. I'm good with it. Like, no complaints, didn't question it, nothing. And it's not just him. We've got a team full of those kind of kids. They just want to win.
And something else that Armando, I assume, is going to keep doing for you is kicking the ball.
Yeah,
it's not a minor thing what he does for you in the kicking game. He can put it deep on the kickoffs, and that's important.
We've been very lucky here, and you're right, especially in every football game, but especially high school football. The kicking game is big. The number of games that we have won off of extra points, or being able to kick the ball deep and force people to drive the field, or simply punting the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to knock on wood again. I don't know when the last time we had a punt blocked was. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal too. And Tanner's an outstanding punter for us. But yes, Armando, with his extra point, the ability to probably, once the ball gets to the 30-yard line, mm-hmm. we can take a shot. We can take a shot at a field goal. So it's a nice weapon to have. And especially now, we only played 2 games on grass this year. Kicking on that turf's a little bit easier than kicking off the grass. So it really becomes a weapon for us.
And last year, John Westendorf was kind of a I don't know if he came out of nowhere for you, but I don't think I necessarily went into the season thinking this kid's going to run for almost 1,000 yards. But he was a force. Difficult to bring down. And I guess I should really ask you who all is back, but I assume that John is still back.
He's still back there. So yeah, he had a really good fall, and he got it similar to Tanner. The more reps you get, the better you're going to be. And no different than Terrence and then Chase, as they went through, the more reps and carries they get a better feel for it. And John is a very patient runner, and he has a really good feel for things. And he's a thick, stocky kid with some muscle, and he's not fun to tackle. And you don't get a clean shot on him. And if you do, you might be bouncing off of him. And so he's back. And then we have a sophomore by the name of Weldon Dunstan. Weldon's going to get some carries too. Okay. And Weldon's got some of that explosiveness where he could get out and go and might not get caught.
Yeah, you mentioned John being a difficult tackle. I mean, I don't know if one person brought him down all season. He was, I have a hard enough time keeping the stats I do, but yards after contact, I have to imagine was a pretty impressive number for him.
Yeah, he's got quite a few, and our guys have had some trouble this fall during our live segments. Getting them to the ground with just one person. So it's good for us. And like I said, he's had a really good fall camp too.
So that gives you
I'm sorry, Wade. Brett, you mentioned his patience. And that's one thing I noticed is he will let the line create a seam, create a hole, whatever. He's not like, he's running right into his guard or his tackle. He'll let those things happen. And that's huge, because that gives him the opportunity sometimes to pick 5-6 yards up a play when looks like you're going to get one or stuck for no gain.
Yeah, and a lot of that patience, he had it anyway, but a lot of that is just more reps and the timing of it and the timing of the runs and understanding in regards to what play we're running. And then I think that the other thing that's going to be beneficial to us is Weldon doesn't have that patience, and so when he comes in, it's a different pace to try and tackle, and to use a baseball term, like we talk about, hitting his timing and pitching throwing off the timing, and so all of a sudden the defense can kind of get comfortable within it, and all of a sudden just that little change of pace and that little little different angle and quickness with which they hit the hole. The next thing you know, it's by you. And so hopefully I feel fortunate we've got two really good ones. And so I'm looking forward to that.
And he sounds like a kid at a point in the game where, okay, they're stretching him wide. We've got him, and he's going to beat him to the corner and go. Where they're like, hey, wait a minute, we haven't let anybody turn the corner on us all day. Where did this kid come from?
Yeah. No, it's been good. It's been nice to watch those two. And like you mentioned earlier, those drives like in the third quarter, fourth quarter. Well, that's another benefit to those guys just going one way. And now he becomes even less fun to tackle in the middle end of the third quarter going into the fourth than he was at the beginning.
So you mentioned your secondary from last year in a place where you'd like to shore things up. Who else figures into that? You talked about Armando a lot, but who else are we gonna see back there?
Well, the Jack Harper, the young man that we talked about, again, he's 6'2", 180 pounds, just to have some size back in there. So him in a corner spot. Carter Bush, who played some corner for us last year, and he's back. So he's competing in there as well. London Wrinkle's probably going to start at the other safety spot next to Connor Simmons. And London ended up starting a couple of games when Connor was hurt. London ended up playing back there and playing pretty well. So he got some experience. And then Miles Maxton, we have a strong safety spot that's kind of like an outside linebacker type position. And Miles Maxton. So all those guys are seniors. So the nice thing is they've had a normal last year.
Yes.
To get ready. So that part of it's been, even though they didn't play a ton of varsity football last year, they played some special teams and we're in some games to kind of see the pace. So they've had a nice fall camp as well. So but I know now the other thing is, and you brought it up earlier, the lines.
Mm-hmm.
And your secondary gets pretty good when you can pressure the quarterback.
Yeah.
And so the years that we had, the Austin Herbert and those guys that could get in there and pressure the quarterback, Parker was really, really good. And there's a reason he had those 11 interceptions, but getting some people to the quarterback helps those guys as well. So hopefully those four guys being back up front, we can generate some pressure, and that helps those guys out in the back end too.
Absolutely. So you mentioned dedicating the field, and I don't think it's something that Mike and I have talked about on here a few times already, but anyone who follows football in Effingham but somehow hasn't picked up on the fact that you guys are going to be playing on a brand new turf field, you've gotten a little bit of practice time on it, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
When were you able to get on it and actually start having?
Let's see. The first week of practice. So we started the 8th. So on a Monday, that Friday, we were able to get on it. So we got on it Friday and Saturday.
What? Tell me the difference in gameplay. Assuming obviously when conditions are bad, we understand the benefits of having a turf field. But when it's just a nice Friday night, what are some of the things that a turf field still changes that a kid would have to get used to?
The nice thing, like you said, is from a weather situation, if we do get, the field's not going to play a part in the game. That's the first thing. The second thing is, even early in the year, as the game goes on a grass field, you'll get a lot of dew on the field. Mm-hmm. And it becomes, even though you haven't gotten rain, it's a very slick surface at times, and especially if it's mowed down. And so not having to deal with that, the footballs obviously get very wet on those nights as well. So not having to worry about any of that is a big thing. And I try to tell people when we talked about this, and we're making the push for it for quite a while. Mm-hmm. We're in the fall. Everybody thinks, well, it's a football thing. Well, in the fall, we're on it the least. I can show you the practice schedule. If soccer's got 2 games on it, they're practicing on it at least once to get used to it. So they're on it 3 times that week. The band's on it 2 or 3 times that week, and we only practice on it once. Mm-hmm. Where it becomes a big thing for us is game night. And then you get into the playoffs, you don't lose practice time. We lost if people realize how much practice time we had lost the year we went to the quarters and the year we went to the semifinals. Well, we're practicing in a gym. We played Murfreesboro the week we played Murfreesboro and the week we played Bishop McNamara. We practiced outside once in the two most important games that you're getting ready to play.
Yep.
Well, that's a big deal. Murfreesboro had turf, and Bishop McNamara could go to Olivet Nazarene. So we didn't have that luxury. So those situations, and then in your off season, in the spring and in the summer, when you know whether you're going to be able to get on your field no matter what, that's where it becomes a huge development for us.
And obviously, since some of the other schools in the conference and on your schedule have already had it, it's not completely foreign to the kids either. They've been on.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It does. You do. There are you have to be, still have to be pretty with your footwork and things like that. You're not going to be able to roll over your inside, but there's some things that you've got to get used to it, where you got to keep your feet underneath you and some and all that. But I will say this about our project. I learned a lot from the people that put it down. So the installers, that they have no tie to the company. They're just installing the product. And they were very gracious and had a lot of great things to say about our people, and that they didn't cut any corners. We got the best stuff that they sold, and the longevity of it and just how it plays and all that. And I don't know if you got a chance to walk out on it, but it is nice. It is soft and nice, and we're very fortunate.
That was the thing that blew my mind. I mean, I work up at Eastern, so I get on there. I run on the track at lunchtime a lot, and I get on their field. And it's not that it isn't a nice artificial surface, but it's been there a while, and even you could tell that some advances have been made even since then. Because when I walked out on your field Friday night, I was like, "Wow, this is
pretty nice."
Like on some of those turf fields, I feel like it might not be that much fun to get tackled on this stuff, but that feels about as natural as it can, I think.
Yeah, it is.
My son's junior year was for Modern Day's first year of having their turf, and I did stats, and I was walking on it, and I thought, this is like I thought it would be, kind of hard. And then I was on yours before they had put the sand and the rubber down. We were out there walking around the track one night, and Dave was out there, and I thought, okay, well, it's a little softer. Well, then Friday night, I thought, wow, it almost gave, It was almost like, wow, this is like thick grass that's not thick enough to trip you up.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and so you saw it. If anybody saw it before they put the fill in there, how long the grass fibers are, and then you can barely see the top of them on the field, is how much sand and rubber they put down in.
I thought they mowed it. I thought Mike McCollum mowed it, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, it's nice, and our kids liked it. It was pretty neat. New superintendent Andy Johnson. Andy came in on that Friday morning and spoke to our kids. Did a tremendous job speaking to our kids. And so he was actually the one that told them that they could go out and practice on it, because we were told that the final walkthrough wasn't until Monday, and so we were going to have to wait until Monday to get on it. And so, needless to say, there was no shortage of energy that first day of getting out there on it.
That's pretty exciting.
Good. And I gotta think, I'm hearkening back to the original Klosterman field, and those preschool practices when you would sit and lie down and do your stretching before practice on that dew-covered dirt, which really had no give to it. And wasn't fun to sit on when you start getting those chilly mornings in early October. It's just, when we went out that first night, and that's the first time Dad had actually seen it. So it was before the dressings were down, but I mean, sand and rubber. But, my dad was tearing up, Brett. I want to tell you, he's been in Dave's ear 15 years minimum about wanting this done. And, it's, the tradition and the history of the program and the field and everything. It's just fitting. It's an incredible facility. It really is.
It is. I tell anybody that it was already a great facility. Like, I look at things as a coach, I look at things, maybe at things a little bit differently, like the proximity of our locker room. Like, if you're a visiting team, you pull in on your side, you never have to deal with anybody. You walk across your end zone straight into your locker room. You're 20-second walk out to the field. You don't cross the other team. You don't need that. You look at some of the places we go, Charleston makes you dress all the way up to school and then make you walk through their people. At Taylorville
used to do that. They had a tunnel of people we had to walk through.
Yeah. And you gotta enter the field through their side, and then just where the dressing rooms and just all that stuff. So we were already, like I said the other night at the ceremony, it was already a great place. And I think this just made it even better. And like you guys talked about, other people in the league have it. And we talk about, we use a number of sayings within our program. And one of them is, you get better, you get worse, you never stay the same. And I think it's in regard to facilities too. You're either always improving or you're falling behind. And you look at it on a much bigger level, look at what the colleges are doing with their facilities and their stadiums and their player lounges and all that stuff. And so for us to finally get that done here, super fortunate, and it's turned into one heck of a facility.
So Brett, we're already butting up against the amount of time I promised you that I would make you stick around, but I didn't want to let this conversation go without at least giving you a chance to talk to me a little bit about how you feel you're going to fit into the Apollo this year. Obviously, competing for a conference is a big thing every year. It's I have to imagine that it's always talked about, and so I'm curious. There's still some really good teams in the league.
Yeah, there are. It's obviously Muhammad's going to be the clear-cut favorite of everybody. They've got so many guys back. I think they only had 9 seniors on their team last year, and not a whole lot of those guys played. They were in the 5A quarterfinal, so I think everybody's kind of predict them as number one. And I think after that, it's kind of a toss-up. Mount Zion's always, us and Mount Zion have won 4 out of the last 5, before Muhammad. So I think you throw us in there, you throw them in there. Matt Toon's got a new coach. And a lot of times that brings out excitement, saying some guys maybe that hadn't played, they come out. And they've got one of the larger enrollments in the conference, and their facilities just got redone too. So there's going to be excitement there. Charleston doesn't have many seniors. They got a ton of juniors. Well, those juniors all played last year as sophomores. So the conference is going to be very, very good. And like you said, yes, that's our number one goal every year is to compete for and win that. Do I wish we were playing Muhammad a little bit later in the year? Yeah, probably, to give ourselves a chance to kind of get our footing a little bit. But playing on week 2, we'll go up there and play it. But I would think they would be number one. And I think after that, you got a whole lot of people that probably feel like they've got a shot at it, kind of like back in the old playoff days when it was just Rochester. Is you had Rochester and the other 15 teams thought, well, we can all beat each other. I don't know about beating Rochester, but so I think in the conference, I think it's kind of the same way. I think everybody's looking at Muhammad, and then I think you got a whole bunch of people that that think they got a chance. But I will say this: I've always thought this about our kids. Our kids that play hard, our kids that compete, and I know this group especially. They've had a lot of success growing up. All they want to do is win, and they'll compete and they'll fight you for 4 quarters. I do know that, whether we're playing Muhammad, we're playing Charleston, or we're playing Rochester.
And they know exactly what's expected of them. I mean, we mentioned this being your 7th year at this point. There's no mystery anymore, right? Kids understand what the high school program is all about and the things that are, going to be preached to them. That's got to be a nice thing at this point, to have your foothold and to not be an unknown commodity anymore, right?
Yeah, it is. You're right. Our kids and our parents know the schedule. And by schedule, I mean the year-round schedule. Like what they know, okay, in January you're doing this, in February you're doing this. In the summer, here's the weeks that you're on, here's the weeks that you're off, here's when to plan vacation, here's when they really need to be there. And so that part of it is super nice. And like we said, to get back into that normal post-COVID routine is big.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'm going to give Mike one last chance if he's got anything on his mind that he wants to throw out there. But I know you got a coach's meeting to get to in less than an hour now, so I don't want to mess you up too bad here.
Brett, I know you've got St. T. I know you got Mater Dei. Is Highland your third or is Triad?
So Highland. So we open St. T, Muhammad, and then we finish modern day Highland.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I knew those were the 3 non-conference. I just wasn't sure where they were in
Yeah.
the schedule.
yeah.
So, and again, we talked about your schedule. There's no, well, this one will be okay. No, it's lunch pail.
No, it's not. And nothing. And you're dealing with 16 and 17-year-old kids, so really nothing.
Right, exactly.
It's guaranteed. You never know what you're going to get.
I've seen those games when you think, okay, we'll be all right here. Hey, wait a minute. I saw the heart squeak out an overtime win in a game that couldn't even have been competitive.
Yeah. No, it has, but we're blessed. We got great kids, great families, great support, great community support, great interest in the program. Like I said, I appreciate coming on here and getting to visit with you guys. Love to do it again. We can talk about anything but football. I don't care. I'm good with what.
Well, that's great. We really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing your team play, Brett. And I'll take this opportunity now to say that, Greg and I really appreciate you making the effort every week during the season after the game. And, there's some games where I'm sure the last thing you want to do is come up and talk to us about it.
But if you can make sure I don't have to climb out a window again, we'll be all right.
Well, that's, they were great to us at St. Teresa last year, but I will say that there were some acrobatics involved in getting to the place of the broadcast.
That may be second now to the cherry picker at Monticello story now. So that's up there.
Yeah. Well, Coach, again, best of luck this season. We're looking forward to seeing you guys in action, and I'll let you get on with your evening.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Right. That's Brett Hefner, Effingham High School football coach. We'll give him a minute to sign off. And then Mike, you and I.
We'll see them Friday night, Whitey. I'm excited. I really am. I'll tell you what, too. There was, it sounds trite and cliche-ish, but there was a little bit of buzz in the air at the unveiling Friday night.
No,
there really was.
I agree. A good energy about the place. I didn't get to. I'm going to watch the video of the speeches. I have to admit that to everybody that I took off before the talking started because I had a 10-year-old in tow, and she was starting to get a little bored with me.
She could have came set with me. I'd entertained
her. She wasn't in the mood to be entertained by anybody. She was in the mood to go home. So
but I will say, there's a pretty common thread, which I love the aspect and the community part.
Yes.
Community part. And I love the fact that Dietrich Bank's speaker was Steve Will. And, Steve Will's from T-Town, and he talked about, across the creek and coming and watching games. But that's the feel. I mean, when you go to a game, you see high school kids from Altamont and T-Town and Stew-Straws and St. Anthony and Beecher, they're there. Because Friday nights, I still remember, my 2 oldest went to St. Anthony through 8th grade and then Effingham. And I always asked Morgan, I said, what's the favorite part about high school at Effingham? She goes, Friday nights, Dad, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And it is. And when you have and I've talked to administrators about this, when you have a good, exciting football season, the school year runs a little better. It really does.
And sometimes people don't understand that either. Like from those smaller schools you talked about. I mean, I'm from Neoga, and football to me was always kind of a foreign concept.
Exactly.
Didn't really understand the mystique.
Did you see where Stew-Straws mentioned that at a board meeting?
Listen.
They brought it up about football.
It's a big undertaking. That's all I'm going to say is that, bigger districts than that have toyed with the idea of starting up a program. And there's a lot of reasons why it's daunting. It's not just the numbers and trying to get people together to want to play.
Finances are probably the biggest thing in this area. And I know it's been discussed in Teutopolis. When you have as long as you have fall baseball, okay, as a conference sport, or everyone around has it, T-Town being an independent plays a fall schedule. In my opinion, it's almost impossible because of the sheer numbers of kids. But when you look at kids in a school, and I've been involved in T-Town as an AD and been involved there coaching golf and such, and you see the kids who don't play basketball, who don't play baseball, who are 6'5", 220 walking around the hallways, thinking, God, left tackle, man, there's a defense. You just, when I see these kids, I just think, oh my goodness. And it's just, communities would embrace it so much.
Yeah.
And it's just, but it's such a commitment and such an undertaking and such a financial
And you might
output.
you might have a group of people that are very committed to making it happen, but 10 years down the road, those kids are going to be long gone, and your
Well,
numbers
that's the
are going to
thing.
be the same.
You have to, you go back in the day at Klosterman Field. You don't see it here as much, but back in the day, the old Klosterman Field, and it always seemed to be down past the south end zone, between the end zone and the track, 40 kids playing football with a small football or a wadded up popcorn bag. I saw something on Facebook. Tank McCorder, Rich McCorder, one of our first guests, had talked about, he loves seeing that at games and those kids doing that because, but once you get it, you got to remember, Effingham, during Jack Klosterman's heyday, there was no junior football. We played flag football in the Park District was our football until we, went and drew equipment as freshmen, and you're like, what's this pad? So it's not like, oh, we've never had this, but it's such a tremendous addition to a program, and it gets kids involved. You look at how many Effingham football kids, that's their only sport they play. Okay. A lot of them, and it's such a good thing. You get more kids involved. I hope they're able to get the bleachers back in the end zone. I don't know if that's a no-no with the turf, but I think having the band down there has been good.
Yeah.
Those kids were jacked the other night during the unveiling. It was really neat.
Yeah. And it, again, Brett touched on a little bit, and we have, Dave touched on it last week, Dave Woltman, the Effingham High School Activities Director. And you and I have talked about it. There's lots of other programs and people in that school besides the football team.
Well, the band practices of an evening a lot of times, and if there's no home lower level game, they've kept them off the field, and I understand why, because if you just have constant traffic all the time, now you have the field I played on, which is dirt.
Yeah. Yep.
So those kids walk across, Henrietta and go over and practice over there. So now they're able to do this. And when they have their big band event competition, Greg Sapp says you would, and I've driven out there, you would not believe how many people are there. It's incredible.
Well, and they do those competitions on football fields, I understand.
Right.
So like,
but
just
there's times they're like, oh my gosh, are we gonna, is it too wet to be on the field or this or that? Now you've got very durable and a beautiful facility.
And then being able to practice on a football field all the time helps them, just as far as knowing where to be and stuff like that. I don't know anything about being in a marching band, but it seems to me like if you're doing it on the surface that you're going to be competing on, there have to, it can't be bad, right? So
well, and it's just, I just think it's the whole idea that they can be there instead of having to haul everything across.
Absolutely.
And in the spring, early spring, I'm assuming your baseball and softball are going to be able to do some work out there, throw, take ground balls. Because you know how horrible those fields are. Usually when the calendar says, hey, it's time for the first week of practice, and you're like,
still winter.
Okay, well, let's don't break any windows in the gym playing catch,
Yeah.
So there's all kinds, and the PE classes are going to get to go out and use it. I guarantee you.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's and fantastic. The scoreboard, of course, a nice touch too. just a great facility. And we
Yeah.
always talk about it on our broadcasts anyway. Like, there's no place we'd rather call a game than on our home field. You know, the
Oh.
facilities are just top notch,
Well,
in the atmosphere. It's a great place to see a high school game.
and you know, Dave Walton said last week when they started tearing up the old sod, they were very complimentary of the condition of that field.
Mhm.
You know, we don't see fields in this good a shape as this very often. So, you know, Effingham had a really good field. However, you've announced those games, Whitey, in the rain and the muck and the mire. When you and Greg are just kind of saying heads or tails, who was it? Was that Wessendorf or was that someone else running? You know, you don't know.
Yep.
And it's hard, but it's such a, you know, to the community, all the businesses, you know, Washington Savings Bank stepping up like they did. And one of the things Chris Custer said, I know he was kind of as being involved in the sports backers, and he was a driving force in that, you know. When they left the meeting, they all thought, yeah, this is doable. They were unsure of the time frame, and you know, and he said, Blake Linder said, I think it's perfect timing, and I think we can pull this off. And Chris said everyone he talked to, he didn't get a single no. Why do you think about that? You were asking for donations it wasn't like, hey, I'll give you $100. These are sizable chunks of change being donated. And again, our community is, and when I say community, I mean the area is just so giving to things. They really are.
That's that's really something that as kind of an outsider, you know, obviously I've been around Effingham area sports for a long time, but I haven't really lived there, so to speak. So I'm always kind of an outsider's perspective. And the thing I've always noticed, both the city schools, both the city high schools and Teutopolis for that matter, really the entire county, you know, you've got athletic programs that have a deep support level. They've got people that care. They don't just send their kids there and then once they're graduated, it's not their problem anymore.
Right, they're still part of it.
There's a pride taken in it, and so then the next generations of kids get to reap the benefits of that sort of attitude. They get to have those kind of facilities and have the kind of events that they do and the kind of successful programs they do. It's very much a cycle that keeps on going, and it's something that they should all be proud of. And the people who spearheaded this turf project and this, you know, just the improvement to the stadium in general, they should really feel good about what they've done and be proud of how many students' lives they're going to have positively impacted through their hard work and their generosity.
Yeah, and you've got cynics out there. Oh, this is strictly going to help football. No, and just like Brett said, they probably are on the field the least. Again, because they play once a week. You know, soccer may have 2 home games, and so and just the fact that there was, I think, Coach Arney, the soccer coach, mentioned how collaborative the whole process was. And that's wonderful. So, all right, let's move on to other sports.
Okay.
Because really, volleyball hasn't played yet. I think we've had a couple of fall baseball games.
A little bit. It's gotten started.
Yeah. The main sport of the fall is underway, and that would be golf. We're underway.
I wondered where this was all going. And
well, you knew where it was going. Come on. But I will say this, because St. Anthony and their golf schedule, they're kind of like, you know, they have as tough of schedule as you can create. All right. So they've played in an event. The first day you could play, they were up at Bloomington, and it was the big boys, the Wheaton. I want to say Wheaton Central, but mostly golf. You got 3 classes, so I think they may have been the only 1A school there. Finish 5th or 6th, I want to say. We played in an event with them the next day over at Van Burentsburg and Indian Springs, and it was like 79 degrees and the sun was shining and the ground wasn't squishing when you were walking. It was like almost heaven. And they kind of, I don't want to say irked people, but it's Phil's tournament and he brings his varsity and a second squad. Okay. Well, they finished 1-2. A very good Olney team finished third, and Olney did bump that JV squad the following Monday in the tournament. So Olney squeezed in between them the next time we saw them. But Phil's got, there's 12 kids he's playing in tournaments when he can, and they're good. I mean, they have a problem, and it's who are going to be the six to go play when it becomes regional, sectional, and state. Now, granted, you can play six in a regional, maybe pull that 6-man out, plug another 6 in, or pull 5 and 6 out. You have that option, and Phil is very detailed on how he's with his scores, and he puts in the slope rating of the course. So if you shoot this score on a real easy course, or you shot this score on a tough course, so he levels the playing field on those. And you know, they had a playoff. They played this played yesterday down at Red Lake, and they had a playoff. 3 kids had a 9-hole playoff to see who would get that third spot, and those kids were 1 under, even, and 1 over in their little playoff. I've talked to Phil's talked to me, and I've talked to one of the dads, and that's for the 6th spot. So 2 kids, you know, combined to shoot 1 over, and they weren't able to make the trip. It was the only meet where a 1A team beat them, and Belleville Alta, actually Benton won, and Benton was either first or second last year in 2A. They have a kid who's incredible, by the way. And then Belleville Alta, who was 2A last year, and I think is now down to 1A, beat them by a couple shots. So I'm going to go on the limb, and if Belleville Alta's still 1A, the top 2 teams in the state will be between those 2. And they were separated by like 4 shots. And, you know, St. Anthony had some kids play really well, and had a couple kids who are their main players just have one of those days where it was horrible. They shot an 84, you know, but they're not a counter for them. That's the thing. Phil's kids are shooting right around 300. They've been under 300 a couple times. That's 475s in an 18-hole match, Whitey. That's pretty doggone good.
Would you say that as long as you have that system in place and everybody sort of understands how the decisions are being made, that I mean, you know, obviously everybody wants to be part of that 6 and be a contributor, but as long as you keep it fair and have a pretty good,
it's the best you can do. Yeah. It's not like basketball when you say, hey, this kid's doing a better job of guarding. No, here's your scores. And when Phil literally is, you know, because every golf course has a slope where it ranks how hard or how easy the course is. So, you know, when Phil's drilling down that deep, now I do scores. I do my scores. I don't rank. I don't do the slope. I'm just like, nah, that's too difficult for me. I have the same issue trying to get my 6 because I have about 5 kids vying for that spot. However, my kids vying for the spot are not shooting even par at times, okay? But I will say this. I have to give a shout out to my boys, because last year when we played at Iron Horse or Indian Springs to start the season, we shot a 404. I wasn't happy. This year we're playing, and I've got the little app on my phone, the IHSA app, and I'm just like, God, come on. We're getting big numbers. And then when we were done, we were 41 shots better than last year, which is for us, that's at the end of the day. And the best part was, I asked my kids, I said, okay, are you happy? And they're like, Coach, we played terrible. And that's good, because they're not settling for what they did. And then we went to Robinson on Monday, and St. Anthony won that. Olney came in and got second. St. Anthony's JV got third. And we were 364, so we were right there again. We were 1 shot worse. And the other schools who had been at Indian Springs were like 7 or 8 shots worse. So I felt good. But again, my kids were still like, Coach, you know, we got to quit getting, you know, par, big hole, big hole, big hole. That's killing us.
Let me ask you this, just kind of a more broad scope type of thing. In high school golf, is it like around the green? Is that where the most difference is made?
Sure it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because, and I tell my kids when I watch them, and these are things we work on. We won't work on our putting as much until after Labor Day, but I tell my kids, I said, you had a shot on number 7, it's not an elevated green. It's just a little flat area. You're 5 yards off the green. The pin's there. I said, I'm thinking about chipping that in. And I watch you hit the wrong club for the shot. You shouldn't be hitting that club, but you're hard-headed like their coach, but their coach is always right. So, and I'm thinking about chipping it in, or I'm getting up and down one putt and I'm done. They knock it on and then 2 or 3 putt because they don't knock it within 2 feet, foot and a half, because they're trying to hit a club that, Phil Mickelson has ruined the game of golf because they all think they need to hit a 58 or a 60-degree wedge around the green, and it doesn't work.
And sort of the irony of that is that, like, that's the easiest thing to practice, right? I mean,
yep, you can do that in your yard. You can go out in your yard and, I got on 2 kids the other day. I said, I know where your house is. You can go stick a flag or a shovel, or you've got something in the ground at 100 yards, mow an area in your grass close, and you can hit that shot all day. Cohen Pennington, who's a freshman for St. Anthony, who's really, really good, by the way. Their house, there's an empty lot behind them. I know he's got a flag stick. I'm guessing it's 80 to 100 yards from a spot in his backyard. And I would hate to think how many balls that young man has hit. And I tell my kids that's the difference. I said, we play from 100 yards and we're going to hit the green 1 in 5 shots. A St. Anthony kid does it because of the more repetitions, the more they play, the more work they do. They're going to hit it, 3 to 4 times. And once they're going to stick it inside 10 feet, maybe 2, they're going to stick inside 10 feet from 100 yards. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
And then when they're around the green, they're going to get up and down more often than we do. And then pretty soon, I had a young man at Robinson say, Coach, I had 9 3-putts and a 4-putt today. I just couldn't get the feel on how quick these greens were. If those are all 2-putts, that's 11 shots.
Yeah.
And again, my kids have shown so much improvement. They've done so much work in the off season that they've ever done before. I can't be patient for the process. I want us to be shooting instead of 360s. I want us to be shooting 330s now. I know I'm confident we're going to get there. I really do. But, it's just one of those things you got to wait on the process. And our season starts in earnest tomorrow. Now we start having 3 matches a week where we start playing a lot.
Yep.
And that's the thing. But St. Anthony, Phil's group is incredibly loaded. He's got a problem trying to figure out who's going to play, but it's a good problem.
Yeah. Ultimately, I suppose you'd rather be too deep than, the other way around. I mean,
that's yeah. And your younger kids get better. And people want to be part of your program. Why do we've got 25 kids now out for golf at the Topless?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a lot of people. I got 2 volunteer assistants, Manny Way and Justin Kowalski, who without them we couldn't do it. We just have to cut 14 kids or 13 kids and say we can't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good, and we're working at it. Our kids are getting better, But yeah, St. Anthony's got a unique situation. Effingham's, Jeff's kind of had to reload, and they beat us, I think, 2 shots, 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots at the first tournament, which we look forward to playing them in our little duel because it's very competitive. And, it's Jeff and I love to, talk a little bit of smack to each other during the match. And the funny thing is, Jeff, we played with the Effingham kids this first thing, and Jeff's talking to our kids, and, he goes, hey, I really like this kid. Hey, this kid's doing this wrong. I said, I know. I said, maybe if you tell him, he'll hear it from you and not me. But, it's good. And that's the thing. We've got golf in the area. Is kind of, St. Anthony lost one of the girls players to some goofy IHSA thing. It's unfortunate that she's not being able to play this year. But I think their numbers are down. I think Effingham's girls' numbers are down. T-Town's stayed about the same. I think Coach Toller's got about 8 or 9 girls. So it's good. But yeah, St. Anthony can do something very, very special. And the problem is it comes down to on that given day, these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids got to hit that ball in that hole. And it doesn't always work that way.
That's the common theme of high school sports, you know, that they are kids and people like us, you know, grown men get somewhat invested in all this stuff, but you do have to always account for the fact that these are literal children out there playing and they're doing their best. And
I'll give you an example on St. Anthony. At state last year, I think Dakota Flag first day was their medalist as a team. May have been through 2 days was their medalist as a player. First tournament, he was in that second group just because their qualifying scores, you know, he hadn't had a good couple of days. He shot okay, but not kids were shooting better. And it's like, wow, he's in that second group and he led them at state last year.
That's a good story though, you know, and that's just goes to show how much progress or, you know, and a lot of it's probably right here too, you know, a lot of it probably happens between the years too.
And I know it's hard to believe, but I talk a little grief with the St. Anthony kids when I see them pre-match. And, you know, one of them, I said, I saw he had a couple of 9s in their first tournament. And I said, you know, you may have to transfer. And he went out and has played great. So I just keep telling him, hey, I inspired you.
Always looking for that angle, the Mike Wilson angle. This is how I positively affected this thing.
Well, and that's the thing, and it's kind of funny because I was talking to parents. I said, "Hey, had a little inspirational talk with your son." He goes, "I know, probably the same conversation I had with him too." But no, it is, and you know, like I said, great group of kids. It's fun when we go to play. You get to see him, you know, we go to Aldamont's with us tomorrow down in Sandoval, and Aldamont, Jim Strange had a great group last year. They graduated 2 or 3 really, really good players. I think 3. They lost their top 3. You know, like Oblong had a really, really great group, actually won the sectional last year. Those kids all graduated, they're gone. So, but you get to know some of these kids and you get to see them, and it's fun.
So, you know, I guess we're probably looking to wrap things up here. We'll obviously each week, I think we'll take a little bit of time to talk about Effingham football and what they did the previous week. And I don't know, you know, I can't profess to being in tune with the other programs enough to feel comfortable giving like a preview of the next game all that much. I mean, you know, Effingham plays St. Teresa this week. And St. Teresa didn't lose a game last year. You know what that means?
And they are now. Did they? Where did they get beat in the playoffs?
They didn't lose the game last year.
Did they win the championship?
Yeah, they won. They.
For some reason I kept thinking, and they're 2A, right?
Yeah, they're a smaller school, 370.
Right, but
although you know, parochial, so
they get some interesting kids come to their school. I understand, but
yeah,
see, here's the thing, and with Brett. With their schedule, to make the playoffs is a very big accomplishment.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because you've got 6 conference games. So if you don't win the conference, let's say you go 5-1 in the conference. Okay, now you got to go 5-1 in the conference to give yourself a chance to qualify. Because St. T, Mater Dei, and now you got Highland. That's a tough road to hoe.
And that's the thing, like last year, you know, Highland beats Effingham. Highland was they were a 5-win playoff team last year. They lost in the first round, but you got to take into account who they have to play, the conference they're in, and just the quality of opponent that they are. You know, obviously Mater Dei year in and year out, a very difficult school to play. It's a challenging schedule. You know, St. Teresa, they had some very impressive running backs last year.
Did that good running back graduate?
Yes. Their main Denham Cook was the young man's name. That was he rushed for almost just a shade under 2,500 yards last year.
Well,
Now,
and
that's
the thing was, Effingham really, after about what, middle of that second quarter, stood toe to toe and slugged it out with the rest of the game.
that game got off to a bad start. Yeah, that game got off, and you're not. I'm not going to remember all the specifics, but yes.
Yeah, but there was like a screwy fumbled kickoff or a misplayed opening kickoff, or
some things went very poorly in the first quarter, and you're right. After that,
Yeah.
it was a
I think
pretty
St. T had a couple of really short fields early.
What thing St. Teresa does have back, they were starting a junior quarterback last year, so they will also have they'll have their signal caller back in the fold, and that's like we talked about with Brett. That's always a good place to start, right? But
Yeah, and he seems really excited about Pontus's progression this year.
Yeah.
I mean, as a player and also physically.
Yep. I'm excited to see him. Again, I don't want to handicap anything. Anytime anybody ever asks me how I think the season's going to go, it's hard for me to think about anything but who was lost from the year before, because I just can't.
Right.
It's hard.
Well,
for
they
me
lost
to
all
know.
their linemen. Didn't they have all brand new linemen this past year?
Yeah.
I mean, last season, I think they came in with 5 brand new offensive linemen. And I know you were like, and then they developed.
Yeah, you never know.
Exactly.
You never know. And so I hesitate to say much, but I think they've got a good core group, as Brett alluded to. And so there's no reason not to think that this is going to be a competitive team. They're going to be a competitive team, but they're going to have to play extremely well week in and week out to make it in the playoffs.
Hey, you got St. T and Muhammad your first 2 weeks.
I
doubt anybody in the state would have that quality of people right out of the chute.
Yeah, not a knock on them for me to say that they have to play extremely well to make the playoffs. It is just what it is. That and they're capable, I think, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. As you mentioned, a lot of other sports getting started in earnest. School has, I think, pretty much gotten in session across the area now. So,
and Whitey, I know you probably have missed it, but they have discovered the location of the Fountain Youth.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be in St. Louis next weekend. I know who you're talking about, right?
Why?
Yeah.
When was the last 42-year-old potentially National League Player of the Week?
I don't really know. Maybe Bartolo Colon somewhere in there, perhaps.
When he hit that home run, he may have got it by default.
Yeah, I'm just hoping. I don't know what the pitching rotation is yet, but I haven't looked to see that far down the road.
So where are you going? End of the week? Who do they play? The Braves come to town?
Yeah, the Braves are in St. Louis.
That's the end of the week, right?
Saturday. I'll be there Saturday. Hopefully it's not a lefty and I won't have to worry about Pujols smashing, because if it's a right-handed pitcher going, then I probably won't even see him.
No. Well, I think you may some. I think they're going to.
On
occasion, depending on the type of, if it's a guy slider, no. If it's a guy fastball, then you're going to see him.
Well, they want him to get to 700, and it's becoming.
Well, but they're not going to do it because at the beginning of the year he got a few more, I think, than they originally thought. But when you look at what he's doing against left-handed pitching, he has the 3rd best OPS in National League, if not baseball, against lefties.
Yeah, I will say this. He hit 2 off of Bumgarner last night. And Bumgarner's been washed for like 3 years now. So
but he's still mad bum. Did you see where the 3rd at bat ended up?
I saw him hit it off the wall, and then he tried to steal second and got caught, which was at the time pretty silly. It was a tie game. I don't really exactly
right, but wasn't it a bang play?
It was it took a perfect throw to get him. Okay. I would say that.
Carson Kelly, to be honest, he's
Carson Kelly throwing him out.
I know. To be honest, he's a pretty good base runner. He's crafty.
Yes.
He doesn't do stupid things, but
it wouldn't have been his first.
Did the Cubs end up winning today? They were up 2-0 last I saw.
I got a text from a Cubs friend of mine who informed me that they now have a better record than the Angels. So I'm assuming that maybe they did win today, but I don't know that off the top of my.
Okay, so that means they swept the Brewers, which I've been a closet Cub fan the last 3 days.
Yeah, the Brewers. No, the Brewers did win today. The Brewers beat
them in that game
5-2.
Did you see the Padres are now going to closer by committee? Josh Hader is no longer their closer.
Yeah, well, he's been god awful, so it's no.
I'll tell you this. I know the Brewers are getting beat up for trading him. I think they knew he wasn't right.
Yeah, and it helps that even though their in-house candidates didn't perform right off the bat after Hader was traded, they had guys they were confident in. Now the Brewers are pretty much at this point seem to be rolling
Well,
out.
they gave that game to the Cubs yesterday. Yelich caught a routine fly ball running in and then tried to get rid of it real quick and dropped it, and the Cubs were able to tie the game. And strange play. But the best part about the Cardinals winning is the fact that the Yankees are losing.
I made a pretty sizable bid for Jordan Montgomery in my NL only league whenever he became available to me. Where
that was a good deal on your part. Did you get him?
I got him. I had the choice. I had enough money.
You bought a Cardinal lady?
I'm
proud of you.
He was the best available player, and I am a pragmatic type of guy. Okay, and I will make the right decision. Other than the fact that I also had enough money to either try and chase Jake Odorizzi or Thor, and I let Syndergaard go, and that was a bad decision.
I think it was a good decision in the long run.
Yeah, I don't know. Odorizzi, I thought, well, he'll be okay. He's not going to be
Montgomery's. Great. I like Montgomery. I like the way he throws, and
I'm not 100% sure what the Yankees' thought process was on that trade.
They need someone in center field because they don't want Judge playing center field. Because I'm sure Aaron Judge has told them, "Get me out of center field, or I won't even have contract talks."
Well, but I guess, but boy, it's an interesting move to make on the chance.
Awesome trade.
Yeah,
because he was hurt, and there's no guarantee he will be on the field this year.
Yeah, no, I don't think
he
so.
Should be, he could be, and I think the Cardinals had a contingency in there. There's a player to be named later if he does not be active. But Harrison Bader's probably the best defensive center fielder in baseball.
Well, listen, now that Chad isn't playing for the Yankees right now, I don't feel quite as obligated. I've always felt a little bit of an obligation not to be a Yankee hater. But a team wins as many games as they did in the first half of the season. You kind of almost want to see him come back down to earth just because you don't want to feel like they
fell without a parachute. Whitey, they have the worst record in August.
That's the problem.
4 wins.
That's the problem for them.
4 wins.
I don't really. It's not even like. I think it's mostly just like you don't want Yankees fans to get they're pumped up about themselves enough the way it is. So they could deal with this a little bit. They're still probably going to win the East. They're probably going to win.
They were talking a lot of smack when Matt Carpenter was putting up the numbers he was.
Well,
trust me, I heard it.
Well,
now he broke his leg, foul ball, and
but for
their top 5 or 6 hitters are all hitting under 200 in the month of August.
But for what they got, for what they had for what it cost them to get Matt Carpenter on the team, which is essentially nothing. 3 or 4 weeks of production from that guy.
He put up some incredible numbers.
Yeah, just a big time winning lottery ticket for him, and they, those are cool things.
If I want Albert to get to 700, I think that would be incredible. I just want him to pass A-Rod, because if he passed the smuggest person in the world, that's awesome.
Yeah, and what is he? He's 4 shy of A-Rod, is that correct?
No. Does A-Rod have 95 or 96?
That's what I'm looking. Pujols is sitting 692.
He's at 92. 82. No, he's at 92.
92, and A-Rod is 696. So
okay.
So
by the way, Cardinals just took the lead on the Diamondbacks. So
they should.
Oh, speaking of, did you see the play Arenado made last night?
I did. And that was a good play, but we need to make sure that Paul Goldschmidt gets a lot of credit, because you're fielding about 110 mile an hour lawn dart right there too.
That was the thing, because I've never seen Goldschmidt on the field smile, and he was like, he gave Arenado that look like, I don't know how the hell I just caught that ball, and he scooped it. It's short hopping.
Yeah, for people who don't see this play, a guy hits a chopper off the plate, goes about 30 feet in the air,
Yeah, over the
Arenado,
mound.
Arenado basically behind the mound, fields a
They were in a
barehanded,
shift, so he didn't have to go quite as far.
grabs it barehanded, and I mean, it's a rocket at first base, and Paul Goldschmidt has to scoop that thing out. And as a person who had to play a lot of first base in his day, I can appreciate how difficult
That was my home, and that is not as easy as people think.
Nope, it's not. Very impressive. Almost as impressive as taking 3 out of 4 from the Mets and 2 out of 3 from the Astros this week. But we don't have to.
We swept the Yankees to start the downfall. We started it.
The Cardinals did. That's St. Louis is looking good for the division. It's
and I read an article today that they're prognosticating if they make the playoffs, they would host the best wild card team, which as of now would be the Padres in a 3-game series. So there's all that drama. Well, we didn't get Juan Soto, but that's okay, because everyone said with Soto, Machado, and Tatis, they're unbeatable. Well, one of those guys aren't going to be there.
Yeah, the Tatis thing.
Because he had ringworm. Come on, fess up to it. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
The only thing I will say, without knowing,
if I have the gazillions of dollars on the line, Whitey, I guarantee you there's nothing medication going in my mouth that can remotely get me in trouble.
The only thing I will say is that if somebody should have been an expert on what illicit substances to take, it would have been Fernando's dad. I think he would have been able to give him some pretty good advice on.
Did you hear his comments? He more or less said they shouldn't suspend him because people will quit watching baseball.
Yeah, you can't. Another thing that following high school sports as long as I have is that you can't trust parents to ever have parents can't give you an honest accounting.
Non-biased opinion.
Yeah, they're just in case.
Hey, his dad's only famous because he got to face Chan Ho Park twice in the same inning. So,
Well, there's a lot worse things to be known for. He could be Lenny Dykstra. So,
yeah, that would be worse.
Okay, so I don't have
much. Next week we got to work on getting a guest next week.
I did want to.
I guess you're done, aren't you? You've had your one for the year.
You
got 2 now. That's 2.
I got Brett lined up, and I got Kim Romack.
You've got 2. You got 2
pretty solid guests, I will say.
I'm speaking out of school. I'm sorry.
I wanted to mention I wore a red version of this shirt the last time recorded, and I didn't really mention it, but I wanted to bring it up because it's a friend of mine, a guy I went to high school with by the name of Marty Harkey, and a few weeks ago he had a health scare, and they didn't know exactly what was wrong with him, but as it turns out, and I'm pulling up his wife's Facebook post on this just to make sure I get the terminology right, but a stage 4 glioblastoma, a tumor in his brain. He had to have surgery to have it removed, and he's going to have a big fight on his hands, to stay healthy. And it's brought the community of Neoga together. He's our mayor, and again, a guy I went to high school with, lots of friends in town, lots of people who care about him. But I did want to just throw Marty a shout out, and let him know that we're thinking about him every day. And
I hope he's able to recover and battle through that. That's
it's
I hate to hear it. You hear it. It's something new every time you hear of somebody with this and someone with that. It's just unfortunately, when you have communities like ours, a lot of people know who everyone is. It really affects a lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean, it touches a lot of people. So my best to them and their family.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. Another classmate of ours just last night, I learned pretty much the same thing going on with her, somebody who lives across the country. But it's those things they hit home a little bit in a small town when it's people you went to school with and people you saw every day, and you pretty much had no choice but to know them pretty well, and
it's just like with Elizabeth Widener. I mean, I was the AD right before she got into high school, and I still remember her at the Relay for Life. She was doing at a dance. She was doing it, had been raining, and since I was the AD, I was the guy who knew where stuff was. So I was out there kind of squeegeeing off the area so she, can dance without worry about falling or something. But just the strength and determination of that young lady and what she was able to accomplish with what she dealt with. If I was 1% of that person, I'd be a much better person. I mean,
Yeah.
people like that when they are able to be that strong while they're dealing with this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, I'd curl up in a recliner and just,
And that's the thing I've noticed about Marty. He's got 3 young daughters, and he's still been able to get to their stuff and support them. And that's a tough thing, because you're dealing with a life altering, a thing that's going to affect you for the rest of your days.
Very much
you have to think about every day for the rest of your life, and yet you've still got these people in your life that you have to support, and he goes out and he does it, and takes a lot of strength, more than I can imagine. Hope I never have to do anything but imagine it, but
I know.
Just wanted to give him a shout out. So
that's good. I appreciate that. That's good. We talk about a lot of things, and it's good that we bring things like that to people maybe who don't know that. People who will, 14 people who will watch this podcast will hear that. But we're over 100 views. We got 100 or whatever subscribers. Why? We're in tall cotton now.
We got another one last night because I mentioned the show at my fantasy football draft and pulled a new subscriber out of there. So there you go.
We're almost Joe Rogan territory in number of subscribers.
Well,
but we're a much better show.
I am a much more intelligent human being than Joe Rogan, and I've got no. I don't feel like I'm talking out of turn to say that. I wondered, I've been thinking about a haircut for a while. I was wondering maybe if we come, we've set like some sort of a goal.
If we get, what are we at? How many we got? 108,
106.
Let's say we get to 125.
125.
And it will, I'm in a short period of time.
I'm thinking we get to 200.
200 by when? Christmas?
I don't know. I'm just saying when we get to 200, maybe I get like a real. I just saw the other day where there was some mullet contest. Okay, no flat tops, but maybe like a
whitey.
Maybe like a big crazy, like just an insane Billy Ray Cyrus mullet would be kind of a cool thing.
No, I'm thinking if you really want to get people involved, just think. We get to 200 by Christmas and you put a flat top on the line. Wow. And you only got to go to Lilyville. So it's not that far from Neoga. That's a short trip.
All right. We'll workshop this a little more, but
man,
people need to keep this
just remember. Oh, and I got to give a shout out Tuesday morning, about 6 o'clock, my daughter gets on her flight and she will be gone till just about Christmas.
Going overseas, right?
Seoul, South Korea for a semester abroad. And that's a long way away.
It is, I always admire people who want to go and spend some time in another culture, and she'll grow a lot. I've pretty much anybody I've ever talked to, it really helps them appreciate that there are a lot more ways of life than just this one that we here in small town Illinois are used to. So
right. And she speaks the language. She can read it. She can write it. You drop me off at an airport there, I might die because I have no idea what I'd be doing. But yeah, it's just another part of the world that unfortunately is in the news about once a week because there's some crazy people over there and you get a little nervous.
Yeah. Well,
Mike, be back in time to run the stats at the Effingham High School on the at the Christmas tournament. So,
well, that's I'm sure that's exactly that was
foremost. She has that date. Yes, she's got that on her calendar. Why she she wants to get home. It's not to see her boyfriend. It's not to see mom and dad. It's to get the stats from our stat keepers at Effingham and make copies.
All right. Well, I don't know. We've been going a while. I suppose we probably ought to wrap it up.
All right. Well, sounds good, brother.
Thanks again to Brett Hefner for joining the show, and
Very much so.
thanks in advance to all the people who are going to watch this because they heard that the football coach is on, and they're going to click subscribe because they want to hear a firsthand account of every game this season. They want to know what and I know you'll be at a lot of the games too, most likely, or at least have listened to them. So
Most of them I can attend.
this is a good time for you people that haven't subscribed yet. You don't want to miss any football talk. So
We may need another sound bite to go with our attaboy Luther.
oh yeah,
We may need the sound bite of clippers, like hair clippers.
see,
So
we'll see.
when we get an update on subscribers,
Okay, well we'll work on that. It's going to have to be a number like 200.
That's fine.
We're not doing 125 to get a flat.
No, I'm fine with that.
All right. Well, we're going to let it go there before I talk myself into any other really terrible ideas. All right, Mike, take it easy.
See you, Whitey.